In this segment, we're going to start talking about creating materials inside of Google Classroom. Now, materials are those items that we want to be able to give to our students in the Google Classroom, but there's no expectation of getting something back. There's no workflow. I'd like you to see this. I'd like you to look at this. I'd like you to have this, but I don't need to know that you've done something with it. It's a little bit like being able to create something, a little bit like a handbook, imagine. So I could have your syllabus, you could have your timetable and schedule, you could have your class website link you always use, any of those static pieces of things that you just want to give students and they don't necessarily have to complete. So we can do that inside of the classwork tab. I also like to take it a step further and I like to actually organize class materials under a class materials topic. Moving forward, if you want to be able to add materials to your other topics, you absolutely can. I'm going to show you how to be able to kick things off at the beginning of the year. And I'm going to be using a parent guide and a student guide as a bit of an example of what I can put inside of materials in my Google Classroom. So now that I'm back inside of my Google Classroom, I'm going to hit the Classwork tab and I'm going to hit Create. And one of the things I can see here is Material. It's going to pop it up and it's going to allow me to give it a title. So here, perhaps I want to call this a parent guide. I can give my material a description as well. What I can also do is I can go ahead and add that same add button that I saw inside my stream. I can add content from my Google Drive. I can add a link, a file, and YouTube videos. I'm going to go ahead and attach something from my Google Drive. It's even going to bring up my recent, which is really handy if you've just recently worked on something, like the parent guide. I'm going to go ahead and say insert. Notice that there's no option to change if somebody gets a copy, how they get it. It's just a viewable item. What I can also do is I can now put this to one Google Classroom or multiple Google Classrooms at a time. I can have this material go to all students or just certain students. And this is where I want to be able to add the topic so that I can organize where that material is going to go. If I don't already have a topic for that material, I can even create it from here. I'm going to add this to my class materials section. Again, it's our recommendation when you're adding things inside of the Google Classroom to consider scheduling things for students so that they don't feel like they need to interact with it or work on it outside of school hours. In this particular instance, I'm going to go ahead and say post. Now I have a material. I can do this again. I can create a material, and perhaps this is going to be our class website. Perhaps I have a Google site that has important information for our students. This time, instead of adding from my Google Drive, I can just add a link because it's a link to a website. Again, I can choose what's my audience getting this, and what topic is it going to go under. These materials are going to be incredibly helpful for your families to have at the fingertip resources that they always need for your class. Now, it is important to remember there's certain materials we can't post. So for example, if you don't have the license to a digital textbook, you can't actually post that as to your classroom as part of the materials because it breaks copyright. So remember, anything you're posting as a material, do you have the right to be able to use that with your students? But this is a perfect place for those timetables, schedules, website links, and important at your fingertips things. In the next segment, we're going to be covering how to create an assignment where we can actually have some workflow.